Welcome to Mastering CS Candid Leader Insights, the podcast where we deep dive into the world of customer success with industry leaders. I'm your host, Irina Chismash, and today's guest is Alexander Kinapen, Head of Customer Success at NodalView. Alex, welcome, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks a lot, Irina. It's a great pleasure to be on the stage, and I'm really glad that you are actually inviting people from different countries, different backgrounds as well. I come from Belgium, which is a pretty small country. And I'm actually super happy to not only represent NodalView today, but also represent the whole CS scene, the whole Belgian CS scene, especially in the US and all over the world. So it's a real pleasure to be here today with you.
Awesome. Let's find your story. A lot of CSM I've talked to have transitioned into the role of CSM from different roles. Either user experience, it was support, it was product. But in your case, I think you found your thing, and it was always customer success from the very beginning, with an exception. I think, if I recall correctly, you had a sales role. I'm curious, what drew you to this path and what kept you here? How come it was only CS?
First of all, I think it's pretty funny that you mention things that way, because it's actually true. And most of people that I'm interacting with from the CS ecosystem are actually coming from very different background, whether psychology, whether sales, like kind of everything. And I kind of took it differently regarding my own career experience. I've been drawn into the CS ecosystem a bit by chance. When I was younger, I don't have a degree. I didn't pursue this big, degree, career and stuff. But it was more like some opportunity that drawn me into the CS world. So I worked a bit in sales in the past. And in my life, I had to move to Paris and basically with my girlfriend, and had to find a job. And I was kind of open to everything. I was open to discover. I was open to ask questions, meeting new people, all of this kind of thing. And while reflecting on my next move, I kind of discovered the customer success ecosystem by chance, by reading a job offer, and then one job offer leading to a new one, then to another one, And I actually applied, and I got the job immediately. It was in a tech company selling a CRM software for enterprise accounts, and I had the opportunity of learning on the job of being a CSM, but also fine-tuning a bit my customer relationship skills, while also having the sales background that was helping me at the time. The great thing is that a few years ago in France, the CS environment wasn't as busy and as burning as in the US, where the topic has been there for, I don't know, maybe decades now. In Paris, it was fairly new, so people had little to no clue of what they were doing, and they were basically experimenting a lot of things. And that's really what I like about my work, and what I like about CS in general, is that it lets you experiment with tools, experiment with processes, with framework, but also with customers. And that's really the thing that I like, and the thing that's motivating me that much.
I want to ask you, because you mentioned that at least in France, it's a fairly new, or it used to be a fairly new thing. Was it harder to actually sell it internally, or to try to craft a role, or to explain what you are actually doing? And the reason why I'm asking is that the CS role is new. Usually people consider it support. So it's another way of doing support, but with a fancier name. And it's harder when it's at the beginning. You have the pain of basically teaching and educating. Did you feel the same in your case?
When I was in that company, I was pretty lucky that I think they kind of understood the real value of CS. Because from the start, they're starting to have CS as a billable service, which is kind of rare, and that you can only see in bigger enterprise company. And still a lot of companies are afraid to take that step. As soon as you put a price tag on something, it has value, but you expect also return on that investment. And I think that's where the company was pretty smart, because it not only incentivized the customer in taking that CSM, but also incentivized us to provide as much value as possible, because they were paying for it. And it was not as if we were, buying a software and then On the side, you have a CSM there trying to get your attention. Here, it was kind of the opposite, and us having to justify the investment, which kind of changed a bit the rules of the game. And I think that's where I could also learn how to own that CSM position, but also own that place of trusted advisor for the final customer. So that helped a lot.
I know that it was one of your very first jobs in CS, but it has been a while since then. Do you recall what actually helped you succeed in that role? How did you approach? What was important for you as a first-time CSM?
I think the first thing was really the tech. I think it's really something that I like as well. And I like to, have a problem in front of me. I love trying to understand how things works, how they operate into each other, all of this kind of thing. I like to see that as puzzle sometimes, and I like to explain puzzle. And having to explain in a simple way a pretty complex tool actually helps you to create that narrative about that product, but also create that relationship you have with that client, because you are actually the one guiding him throughout the whole process of pushing the button. And I think as soon as you can earn that place for the client, it actually opens the door to every kind of conversation that you can have with him. What it taught me was really the way of being curious with the product. And then that curiosity can be shared with the customer that you're managing. And I think giving that knowledge to someone, as soon as you teach something to someone, it creates kind of that relationship that helps you being productive, provide value, all of this kind of thing.
Let's go back to present. And let's speak about how does a typical day look like for you as the head of CS at NodelView. Tell me more about your current role.
Well, maybe let's talk first about NodelView. So who are we, basically what we are doing? So we are a sales and marketing platform, a destination of real estate agents. So we are a PropTech company, and basically we support our customers in every step of the way of selling a property. The creation of the visual is really the core business of NodelView. So basically, we sell a software that helps them optimize the quality of the picture through AI, machine learning. And then we also support them in selling the property while helping them sharing links, get some leads, as much visibility as possible, so they can sell the property as fast as they can. And we know that on the real estate market, especially today, and I think it's a topic that we'll cover a bit later, efficiency is key, but visibility is key as well. So we have to basically help them get and earn that visibility for them to be able to sell the property that they manage. And basically my job is pretty simple. I'm overseeing two teams. So we have the support team and the customer success team. Both of them are extremely different, although they have the same goal, helping the customer and providing value. I really decided to create that switch from proactive and reactive. I think that's kind of a thing that every CS leader is trying to do. And I think I was lucky to be able to experiment, but also create that switch of mentality within the team. And basically my job is making sure first, both teams have the right knowledge, the right tool, the right everything in order for them to be successful. But also I'm trying to motivate them the best I can, because I think the CS ecosystem is a place where there's quite a high turnover. And I also want to instill that motivation within my team so that they can thrive, but they can also grow as individual. So I would say this is mainly 50% of my job, and the others making sure NodelView is taking the right decision and the right strategies and the right objective to support our customer in their growth. So whether it's influencing product decision, but also trying to influence some project that we should be tackling as a company. So it's really both sides. There is the strategic side, but also the day-to-day side where I'm there for my team and I'm supporting them in their growth.
Let's speak more about your customers and then switch to your team, because you mentioned that you are overseeing both support and CS-related operations. First, on the customer challenges, what are those customer challenges and how do you help them? How do you help real estate agents sell their properties?
Basically, the challenge, I think, is pretty straightforward, but as a real estate agent, as an agency director, what you want is sell the property, right? Because you only get the commission when the property is sold. And all of the work that you've done beforehand is kind of useless unless you've sold the property. They have to justify all of the investment that they made, all of the effort, all of the time that they invested in meeting potential buyers, but also finding sellers, because their own business revolves around, I have a seller, I have a buyer, I put them in contact, and if there is a match, we get the commission. That's really the job. And it does come with its own set of challenges, right? Because on the one hand, they need visibility for the property to stand out, but also they need a lot of support in making sure every interaction that they have with the buyers, with the sellers, is top-notch for them to optimize the chance of selling a property. And you were mentioning challenges. I don't know if it's the same in the US, but currently in Europe, we are facing quite housing crisis with interest rates being extremely high, especially when you compare them to end of COVID, when they were extremely low, where it was really a market with a lot of cash, a lot of transaction. It kind of took a downturn. And now the economic situation is pretty bad. And actually every agent has to really fight for their commission. But on the other hand, there are less transactions, so less money, so less budget, but also less time and less investment for them to put into solutions like ours, for example. And also, well, if it's not working for them, the agency will close. So it's really a matter of survival at this point, rather than just, oh, that was nice to have, decide to remove. No, today they are trying to save as much money as they can to basically survive as a business and to keep paying the salary of the employee. So it's really a tough market that we are currently navigating through. And it's actually extremely challenging, not only for them, but also for us, because we have to support them in that complicated market. And it's actually our responsibility to double down on the efforts that we are providing to them to kind of making sure they don't receive 100% value. They receive 200% value, and maybe a bit outside of our scope, because we also have to be industry leaders and experts and try to educate a bit the market, to make sure that they also grow as professional so that they can get out of that crisis being better than yesterday. So we have a lot of education to do and thought leadership across the markets, which is a challenge, right? Because we are a pretty small company, even though we have a lot of customers across the world, mainly centered in Europe. We have to have that voice and we have to carry that message, which is not an easy message to carry, right? Having to say to your customer, hey, maybe what you do is not enough. It's probably not enough. And if you don't do more, you will not survive. But we are there to help you, like in every step of the way, basically.
Let's talk about your team. You mentioned that you are overseeing support and CS in the same time, and they do share the same objective. First of all, how would you end up to this formula? And how do you manage to separate the proactivity, the reactivity? Both of them work towards a common goal, but I think their KPIs are extremely different. So tell me more about your team setup.
Maybe before talking about the setup, one important thing to know about NodeView. Today, we are managing for almost 5,000 customers across the world in more than 30 different countries. And we are only 8 within the CS departments. So we have to be creative, right? We have to be creative in terms of languages. We have to be creative in terms of investment, but also in terms of, should I really want to put a human there? Or maybe you can find other way to provide value without actually having to put a human behind that interaction. So that whole problem, that whole puzzle was really first, we have customers that have questions, that have issues, that need support in the day-to-day. If the app is not working, you can be as proactive as you want. They won't be able to shoot the picture. It's going to be a huge issue for them. The first principle was, okay, we need to have reaction. We need to be there whenever they have issue. But we cannot afford to hire 5, 10, 20 reps in order for us to be able to support them. So of all, we had to think about, okay, we need reaction, but we also need proaction. And that proaction is more around self-service resources, around communication at scale before there's question. It's all about also giving them the right training, giving them the right tool, giving them the right knowledge, so they don't have to ask us if they have a question. So basically, pretty much naturally, we arrived to the point where, okay, so we need to provide on these two sides, on the reactive side, because we will have customers that will go through the net and that will need support. But we also have to create value for them before they ask us a question. So it's kind of a dance that these two teams have together, because the support will actually catch all of the things that went wrong in the proaction side. And of course, we are a tech company. We sometimes have bugs, etc., that we have to tackle. And life wouldn't be fun if we never had this issue, right? But yeah, that's kind of how I started to create these two teams with clear ownership. And of course, you mentioned different objectives. The objective and the KPI are extremely different, but we are all working towards improving the customer experience in the end, which is what ties us together within that department.
Speaking about KPIs, what KPIs does the CS team have, and which are the KPIs of support, and how do you keep track of them?
I will talk about support team first, because I think it's more straightforward, but it's all centered about CSAT, response time, etc. So it's more around making sure the answer provided are correct, but also fast and efficient, while fun and engaging, because we really want our support to represent our tone of voice, but represent who we are as individuals as well. So this is more around speed, efficiency. And on the CSM side, it's more around customer engagement. We don't survey kind of NPS. We don't call it NPS internally, but it's pretty much the same. The usage. So we track the usage of all of the features that we sell, and we want to push towards improving the adoption on that feature, on feature A, feature B, feature C. And ultimately, we are tracking the financial results and our churn rates mainly, but we also track the number of opportunities that the team creates for the sales team. So it's pretty much different. One is more about reaction speed and efficiency, and on the other one is more about usage, feeling, perception, and ultimately revenue.
You mentioned about the team structure. Now I want to ask you about the skills. What do you think are the must-have skills for a customer success manager?
I think that's an excellent question. And I think what makes the richness of CS, it's actually that a lot of skills could be transferred from a lot of different backgrounds. And I think that's also what works, because we have customers that are extremely different from one to another. And I think we shouldn't only have selected set of skills for someone to be successful in CS. So I think a lot of them can be transferable. Yeah, if I had to pick three, maybe the first one I would pick would be to be team player. Why team player? Because I think as CS, you are kind of the center of a choreography, right? You have to talk with a lot of people, not only internally, but also externally, with the champion of the company you're managing, but also the colleague, but also the product team, also the engineering team, the CFO. Sometimes you need to be team player, and you need to love that contact. You need to be outgoing and be able to step out of your comfort zone to be able to find the answer to your customer problem. So I would say team player is pretty important. Also, assertiveness, I think, extremely important. Making sure that you can communicate effectively. I think the communication part in CS is extremely important. Once again, not only towards your portfolio, but also internally, to make sure your voice is heard, that you can kind of influence sometimes decision. And if I had to pick a third one, for me, it's more as an individual, but it would be to have a growth mindset. I think that's extremely important, especially in CS. It's an ecosystem that's evolving a lot. And every month, every quarter, every year, we have new ways of working, new tools that we can explore. AI now that's around the corner. So I think that growth mindset will actually help you to embrace all of these changes, embrace all of these new roles, embrace all of these new things that you can implement within your day-to-day. And I think you actually need it to be successful in CS. At least that's what I'm thinking.
And how would you test this growth mindset? How would you make sure that the person who you want to bring into your team has this growth mindset?
For me, it's a question of who you are as an individual. And I think it's something that you can easily see when you talk to people. I think something extremely important is your own drive, your internal drive, but also your passion. And I think by talking with someone about his own passion, for example, you can identify whether he wants to grow, he wants to be better in something, whatever the thing. It can be fishing, it can be this, it can be whatever. But having that passion, wanting to be better, a better version of yourself, is actually being in a growth mindset. So by having this conversation about what people actually like to do, because work in the end is just a way to get your salary at the end of the month, but then you have your passion, and really your passion that will also define who you are as a person.
You made it sound so simple, I would say. But I do think that in your role, you're also experiencing some challenges. So let's speak also about the challenges that you are currently dealing with from your role of head of CS. What's the most difficult part in your role?
I see two big challenges that I'm currently facing. And the first one is actually the economic situation that our customers are going through, which not only impact them, but also impact us, because we are still a company, right? We are not a non-profit company, so we have to grow. We have to grow our account. We have to convince our customer to sometimes stay a bit longer, to pay a little bit more, even though we know that they are pretty much struggling. So we have to justify every euro that they spend in our solution, maybe twice as much as we had to do it before. So that would be the first challenge, to justify the investment, providing value, providing the best software we can offer, maybe going the extra mile as well. I mentioned that we had a pretty small team, but it shouldn't stop us from trying to go the extra mile every time we have a customer over the phone, in a conversation, in a meeting, in a training. Always provide that extra thing that then the customer is like, oh, wow, I can't believe that that person shared me that tips, that person helped me in that way. And I think that will be the main challenge, because then if they are not successful, they will literally churn. And if they churn, I'm the one suffering from this result in the end. So I'm really trying to instillate that growth mindset, actually, not only with my team, but also towards my customer that I'm managing. So that would be the external challenge. And the internal challenge, I think it's the same what every CS leader is experiencing, but as CS leaders, we need the buy-in of almost every team. Even though we are maybe 1/5 of the company, are the one always having that words to say about the product, about the sales processes, but also how the money is spent, etc., etc. So the biggest challenge, and it's really an overarching challenge that we all face as CS leaders, is to instillate that customer centricity in every decision that are taken by a company. Because sometimes it's easy to only look at your own result, only look at your own KPI, that you are in sales, you want to bring new people, you're in finance, you want to save as much people, you are in marketing, you want to generate as much lead as possible. But you shouldn't only do it for your own objective, but also for the growth of your own company. And what makes your company grow? It's actually the customer that are coming in, the customer that are being successful, the customer that are receiving the value from the solution that makes you grow. And if you are unable to create that value for them, you can have the best inflow of new customers. In the end, if they are not happy, they will not stay and the company will not survive.
About this, what's your approach to getting the senior management on board with your goals? Because most of the CSM with whom I'm talking, they do mention this as being one of their biggest challenges. Getting the leadership buy-in and making sure that they understand the value that they provide and how they support the company growth. How is it in your case?
I think I was pretty much lucky to arrive in Nodaview because I didn't have to fight for being heard. I think I had my own idea and I had my plan. I think the planification part is extremely important, especially when you talk to the senior management team, to the board. You have to talk about solution rather than problem. And I think that's something that I'm hearing and I'm seeing a lot when I talk to other CS leaders. They tend to face a lot of problem, but they don't find enough solution.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I kind of flip things around is that, okay, we have this problem, but this is the solution I'm recommending. And from there, that's also your job as a CS leader to be creative, because you want to unlock specific budgets to try maybe X, Y, or Z. Maybe they will not open a new position because it's extremely complicated to justify the return of investment on that new budget that you want to unlock, for example. So my biggest advice that I would give to every CS leader out there that's struggling to get that buy-in, struggling to get that budget, to get that visibility, is basically to try small, iterate with as low resources as you can. And if you can prove that with 5% of what you would have, you already managed to create X, Y, or Z results, then it's pretty easy to extrapolate that results by saying, look, if you give me more, this is what I'm going to bring to the company. So it's always a question of solution, results, rather than I want to have 10,000 euros to buy a new software because I'm sure that it will help me in my retention, it will help me in my expansion. I would actually take it the other way around, maybe play a little bit with the tech that you have. And I think we are extremely lucky to have a lot of different solutions, sometimes cheap ones, sometimes one that you can build yourself with no code and actually try yourself if it's working. And if it's working, it will be extremely easy to get the buy-in of your own management team.
Speaking about the technology, and you mentioned the fact that you are only 8 people under the CS and the support, and you need to take smart decisions. You need to think, should I hire, or is it something that I can optimize or automate? What is your current CS tech stack? What do you use in order to make sure that you are efficient and you save the time of your CS team?
If I had to give you the blueprint of every tool that you are using, I think you would be extremely scared. But
okay.
It's a combination of different tools that I'm going to explain a bit later that actually orchestrate it in a way that everything seems flawless because information flows from one solution to another while doing a stop there and another stop there while at the end doing that action. So it's actually a lot of different automation that I had to create in order for the information to flow from one place to another. And I think information data is really a key topic in CS. And first of all, I'm extremely lucky to have a data department within my own company that's actually willing to provide me with as much data as I want.
Mm-hmm.
It is built in a way that actually most of the data that you want is available somewhere and you just need to ask. And I think that's already a great win if you have access to the data, because then the data should be sent to X, Y, or Z. And then you can create automation. You can create all of this kind of thing that would help you. I would also say that I deliberately choose not to buy a CS platform.
Okay.
For the simple reason that today we don't especially have the resources to first orchestrate it, to build it. And I think it's a replacement to a lack of data and lack of maybe technical knowledge that would allow you to automate these things. So we decided not to invest in a SaaS platform, but on the other hand, we use a great platform that I extremely recommend, that I really am a fan of, which is Intercom, that allows you to do already a lot of powerful things, whether it's product tours, whether it's sending survey, whether it's actually automating some task, communication, in-app, email. We also use webinars. We also use Zapier a lot, which is the centerpiece of all of the operation within CS. And CRM, we use HubSpot.
Okay, so it's a collection of all of this. And when it comes to product tracking data, what do you use?
We use Amplitude, which helps us getting these events, analytics, etc., that are then sent to our data warehouse. And from there, our data department created a bit of magic that allows us actually to have kind of a health score created without having, to buy it within a software. So we kind of created our own health score based on what we think and what we investigated was the leading cause of churn, for example.
And where do you store all those health scoring? How do you get alerted when something goes up or down?
So it's actually a good question. So we've basically created some alerts based on specific data that will go up or down. For example, usage, extremely easy. If a customer doesn't log in for X days, X week, get a trigger. If someone is using a bit more than what he should, you receive a trigger. And everything comes in Slack or in HubSpot, depending on what you have to take as an action. And then it's pretty simple. It's kind of a way of run robin, and the CSM take the task and do the task basically. So whether it's a customer that's inactive, then we call them. If it's a customer that's having like a issue with his phone, for example, and we identify it, we reach out to him. So we have all of these events that are triggering some actions, some internal messages from the person that should be responsible is taking over the task, basically. So it's really low tech, but it's actually working extremely well. It's pretty solid. We managed to make it work for 10,000 users, 5,000 customers. And for now, it's working pretty well.
And for all the automations, I assume you use a combination between HubSpot and Intercom to build them.
And different tools as well.
How did you manage to build, or what did you need in order to build proper playbooks? Because you had the systems, but you needed to come up with the overall strategy and approach. And I'm curious what you need in order to build all the automations, all the flows. How did you end up with what you have in this moment?
When I arrived at Nodaview, there was nothing. So it was pretty easy. I had to, what I mentioned a bit before, first iterate, try small, try with a limited batch of customers, see if they react the way you want them to react. And then if it's working, then extend it a little bit more. Then sometimes change the frequency, sometimes change a bit the timing, sometimes change the messaging and do some A/B testing to see what's working best, what's not working. If it's not working, we kill it in the egg. If it's kind of working, we investigate a bit more and see whether by investigating a bit more time and resources, if we can make it bigger and have a bigger impact. And actually all of these processes, because we have kind of many playbook and many framework, it's actually linked to the way we work internally, because I also want to push everyone within the team to kind of experiment with these processes, to come up with new ideas, because the knowledge is within the team. I have some knowledge, but they have the knowledge. And I want to give them the occasion of, hey, Alex, maybe we should change that. Like, okay, great. How would you do it? So they try to come up with solutions. Sometimes they don't have solution and I'm helping them. And then we start small and I'm helping them creating, the technical connection. And then we check if it's working or not. And then if it's working, great, we iterate up to the point where we are happy enough with the results that we consider that project validated, launched. So it's still there. We still monitor it to check if the results are still there. But then we invest a little bit more time in a different process, etc. And that's basically by iterating really from one piece to another that we actually created that whole piece working together.
Alex, before we wrap up, I'd love to know who has been your most influential mentor in your career and what's the best piece of advice they gave you that still resonates with you today?
That's a good question.
Everyone gets it.
When I arrived at Nodaview, they decided to invest on a coach, more like on a leadership coach rather than really a CS coach. And I met a great mentor who also became a friend afterwards. He's the former chief customer officer of one of the biggest SaaS in Belgium, Showpad. But he also has a huge background in psychology. And he was actually the one instilling me that growth mindsets, but also all of these mental model, this internal framework that I can play with, that I still keep in my back pocket. And every time I'm like facing a situation, I'm like, oh, I have that framework that I can leverage. Oh, I have that mental model that I can speak about. And it would be extremely hard to summarize all of this learning into one sentence. But I remember something that he told me that I'm actually sharing every day with my team is that the best leaders out there are actually the people that want to be better leaders. And I think that's really strike because it can be applied to anything. If you want to be the best husband, first you have to do everything you can to be the best husband. If you want to be the best friend, you have to create all of these things towards being a better friend up to the point that you become the best friend. It's the question of if you want to be someone, if you want to be the best in something, you have to want to be better at being that person.
Thank you so much, Alex, for sharing your insights with us today. And a big thank you to everyone who listened this episode. Until next time, stay safe and keep mastering customer success.
Thanks, Serena. Bye-bye.